Hey guys, welcome to the Emergence podcast, a podcast that aims to empower fitness professionals through candid conversations about building sustainable minds, bodies, and businesses. I'm your host, Laura Gunder, ex professional ballet dancer turned classical Pilates instructor based in New York City, sharing my insights from a decades long journey navigating an industry with no set path to success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Hey guys, welcome back to the walk section. I hope you guys are having a great summer. I can't believe it's already July. This summer and year is flying by. I wanted to talk a little bit about some of my reflections from the Gabe Snow episode, which was last week's. I really enjoyed speaking to him and really appreciated his vulnerability and insights into more of the kind of emotional and kind of psychological aspects of being a coach and really working with people in a way that looks at the mind first and then kind of the body, rather than the other way around. And something that I've been thinking about recently in terms of sort of entrepreneurship and reaching my goals as we're kind of halfway through the year already. I have been thinking about kind of how hard I want to push to reach my current goals, and also like kind of what we spoke about in the podcast, which was really kind of looking at yourself. And like we know when we work out, is like making sure we're strengthening our weaknesses and not just focusing on our strengths. But I want to kind of spin this in a positive way. So every year, um, kind of in January, I write out my goals on a Google Doc or like whatever. And I always use it kind of as a reference tool for to kind of keep my progress going throughout the year. And it's sort of an accountability tool. So one of my sections will be non-negotiables, where I kind of put my kind of core values for that year or things that like old patterns that I might have. Maybe it's personal, financial, and in terms of growing, changing a certain habit I might have. And then I will break it down and have intentions. So maybe like three or four intentions that I kind of want to bring to this year. And one of my main intentions was building community and practicing presence. And this year is practicing setting boundaries and protecting my peace. Um, so those are just some examples. And then I really find it helpful to sort of when I'm feeling kind of lost or I feel like I'm not making progress, to go back and look at that sheet of paper and be like, wait, am I making choices that align with those goals, those intentions, those non negotiables? I also wrote a section that is what I'm leaving in 2024. So I try to get a little bit honest with myself and write down some of the habits or patterns or, bad things that I think I do that aren't very productive to myself, such as wasting time on social media. That one's a little difficult. Um, and for me, it's like people pleasing. And it's also like comparison, were some of the main ones I'm leaving in 2024. And even though it seems silly, I kind of do go back and look at this list kind of every month and kind of check in with myself if I'm making decisions and living my life kind of more aligned to some of these goals. And then I will have a business section, a finance section, a health section, and sort of my top three priorities in terms of what I want to gain out of the year. And then if you're really looking to go a little deeper, I will have my short term and long term goals. Of course, nothing's set in stone, but I really find that I've been doing this for the past 2, 3 years now. And I actually find it really helpful to write these things out. And it's not to make myself feel bad if I didn't reach those goals, but it's sort of a framework and a way to continue guiding myself throughout the year to stay on track or to remember what's actually most important to me to get out of this year, and to be honest with myself if maybe I am self sabotaging myself in any way or not moving myself in the way that I would want. And I like to say to myself, especially now as I'm trying to make decisions that would make future me proud, you know, and sometimes it you have to be brutally honest with yourself, like we talked about in the podcast about like really looking at those weaknesses and making sure that we're sharpening those tools and looking at some of the gaps we might have in our knowledge to kind of get us to where we need to be. So I find it really, really, really helpful to write out a goals list for 2025. And maybe you do that already, or if you haven't done it, I recommend starting it for the last like 6 months of the year. And it is really helpful. And it's not a way to look negatively at yourself. It's actually kind of a way to celebrate yourself come January and February next year when you can really look back and be like, wow, like I accomplished all these things, or it was a really hard year, but I stayed true to my intentions and my non negotiables. And even though I had to make a lot of hard decisions, or maybe I had to, remove people out of my life, or I had to, fire some clients or change who I'm working with and the environment I'm working on. I'm actually living in more alignment with the things that I want that I know will make me happier long term. And so that's one of my main takeaways from the Gabe Snow episode. And I can personally say that I, falter, I go back and forth, but having this kind of framework to check in on myself, even though it's really difficult, I do find it really helpful because then I can see right now, I'm like, okay, I am making choices that for me, like one of my intentions is protecting my peace. And that means like I am teaching in a way now that's not in a way that I feel like I'm sacrificing my whole entire life to be teaching. I'm also making time for friends and for connection both inside and outside the studio. And also just like being more cautious about who I'm giving my energy to, because as you know, as a teacher, we give our energy all day and it can be really draining if you're spending it with people who maybe don't reciprocate that or who don't make you feel great about yourself, or you leave an interaction feeling more tired. Um, so yeah, that's kind of one of my main things from this week is write down your goals and you're going to be like pleasantly surprised about how much further along you are than you think. And it's just a great way, honestly, to keep yourself on track, celebrate yourself, and then look deeply at the things you need to continue to, you know, work on, and not in a harsh way, but I think it's important that we're super honest with ourselves and maybe the things that we need to change right now within our habits or how we're doing something in order to obtain the bigger picture, to zoom out and look at the bigger lens. And I'm not perfect and I falter all the time, but I am I give myself grace, but I also try to be as honest with myself as possible and obviously have people around me that really support me and are honest with me. And that's incredibly helpful as well. But yeah, write down your goals. You don't have to show them to anybody. It can be super personal. But yeah, take a look at it at the end of the year. And I feel like you actually are going to be really surprised with and proud about how much you've accomplished and kind of your growth. Because I know everybody who's in fitness or listening to this podcast at least is really interested in developing themselves mentally, physically, spiritually, maybe, or just, being the best version of themselves they can be. So thanks so much for listening, guys. Honestly, if you have been following along to these episodes, it really means a lot to me. Um, and I'm really kind of excited about the small community we've been building. If you like any of these episodes, please don't be afraid to send it to a friend. Like, share, subscribe. We're on everything, especially our YouTube. But thanks for listening, guys. Bye.